Around 300,000 years ago, this planet had at least 6 different species of human beings walking on it simultaneously. 6, not 1, 6. There was Homo sapiens, us. There was Homo neanderthalensis, the Neanderthals, stocky and powerful with brains as large as ours and a culture far more sophisticated than most people realize. There was Homo erectus, one of the most successful human species that ever lived, who had already been walking the earth for nearly 2 million years. There was Homo heidelbergensis, the likely ancestor of both modern humans and Neanderthals. There was the Denisovans, a species we did not even know existed until 2010, identified not from a skull or a skeleton, but from a fragment of finger bone found in a Siberian cave. And there was Homo floresiensis, the Flores Island people, a tiny hominin species so small and so strange that researchers initially could not believe it was a separate species at all. Every single one of them is gone now. We are the only one left. And the question of why we survived and they did not, why the planet went from 6 human species to 1, is one of the most important and most unsettling questions in all of science. Because the answer is not simple, and it is not comfortable, and it involves us far more directly than most people want to admit. Let us start with the species that most people have heard of, the Neanderthals. The popular image of Neanderthals as brutish, dim-witted cavemen is one of the most persistent and most incorrect ideas in popular science. Neanderthals were not primitive. They had brains slightly larger than modern human brains. They made tools. The Mousterian stone tool industry that Neanderthals developed was sophisticated, requiring multiple steps of planning and execution to produce. They buried their dead. At the site of Shanidar Cave in Iraq, Neanderthals buried a body surrounded by what appeared to be flowers, though this interpretation remains debated. They made jewelry from eagle talons. They created cave art. Sites in Spain show cave paintings that predate the arrival of Homo sapiens in Europe by tens of thousands of years, which means Neanderthals made them. Neanderthals were not animals, they were people. And then, approximately 40,000 years ago, they vanished. After surviving for at least 400,000 years, through ice ages, through volcanic eruptions, through every catastrophe the planet threw at them, Neanderthals disappeared within a few thousand years of Homo sapiens arriving in Europe. That timing is not coincidental. But what exactly happened between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals is not the simple story of conquest that it might appear. Because the ancient DNA evidence tells us something remarkable. Modern humans carry Neanderthal DNA. Between 1 and 4% of the genome of every non-African person alive today is Neanderthal in origin. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals did not just meet and fight, they met and they interbred. Children were born with both Homo sapiens and Neanderthal ancestry. Genes passed between species. The boundary between us was not as absolute as the word extinction implies. Some of those Neanderthal genes are still doing things in modern human bodies right now. Some of them are associated with immune function. Neanderthals had lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years and had developed immunological adaptations to European pathogens that Homo sapiens arriving from Africa did not yet have. By interbreeding, Homo sapiens acquired some of those adaptations. We essentially absorbed part of the Neanderthal immune system, but something still ended them. And the leading theories about what killed the Neanderthals are more complicated than a simple war. The first factor was population size. Neanderthal populations were always small. Genetic evidence suggests that the total Neanderthal population at any given time may have been only in the tens of thousands, spread across an enormous geographic range from Western Europe to Central Asia. Small populations are fragile. They are vulnerable to inbreeding. They are vulnerable to random catastrophic events. They cannot absorb losses the way large populations can. Homo sapiens, by contrast, arrived with larger social networks. Evidence suggests that modern human groups maintained connections across much greater geographic distances, trading materials, sharing information, and maintaining gene flow across populations in ways that Neanderthals appear not to have done at the same scale. This created a resilience advantage that compounded over time. The second factor was cognitive flexibility. Both species were intelligent. But there is growing evidence that Homo sapiens had a kind of cognitive flexibility, an ability to innovate rapidly, to develop new solutions to new problems, to create symbolic culture and use it to coordinate behavior across large groups. That gave them an edge in rapidly changing environments. The Upper Paleolithic revolution that occurred when Homo sapiens arrived in Europe was explosive. New tool types appeared rapidly. Art appeared on cave walls. Figurines were carved. Bone flutes were played. This was not the behavior of a species barely surviving. This was a species that had found a way to externalize cognition, to store information in objects, in symbols, in art, in a way that allowed knowledge to accumulate across generations at an accelerating rate. The third factor was climate. Between 45,000 and 40,000 years ago, Europe experienced dramatic climate fluctuations. Multiple rapid cold events, called stadials, dramatically reduced vegetation, collapsed animal populations, and stressed the ecosystems that Neanderthals depended on. Neanderthals had survived ice ages before, but the combination of climate stress and the simultaneous pressure from an expanding Homo sapiens population may have been too much to absorb. The fourth factor, and this is the one that most researchers are most reluctant to state plainly, is competition and possibly direct violence. There is no definitive evidence of a systematic war between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, but there is evidence of violence. Neanderthal bones with injuries consistent with weapons, sites showing Neanderthal populations retreating into increasingly marginal territories as Homo sapiens expanded. The pattern of Neanderthal disappearance, retreating westward into the refugia of southern Spain and Gibraltar before vanishing completely, looks like the pattern of a species being pushed into corners. Homo sapiens may not have deliberately exterminated Neanderthals, but competition for the same resources, the same prey animals, the same sheltered cave systems, the same productive territories, in a world where both species were present in small numbers would have had devastating effects on the smaller, less networked Neanderthal populations over time. Even without a single battle, the slow pressure of competition could have been enough.